This episode is for romance readers and birders alike. We're talking with Sarah T. Dubb about her books, Birding with Benefits, and her upcoming book, Honey Be Mine. And when talking about Birding with Benefits, we talk about just this journey of mature women in their 40s really trying to discover what it is that makes them them, turning that love and care that they give to others on themselves, and the power of friends who tell you to do that. We also talk about how Sarah's book got optioned and picked up by Hallmark and what that process was like. So this one was a ton of fun. Listener discretion is advised. This podcast contains mature content intended for adult audiences only. Sarah, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. If you could start by telling everyone how you got into this writing journey.
Yeah. Hi. I am so glad to be here. I'm so glad we figured out a time. I'm thrilled to be chatting with you. I have always been a writing type of person, but always nonfiction. Most of my adult jobs have been writing focused, but I never actually wrote fiction. And then I was actually in graduate school to become a librarian. And one of those classes was called Reader's Advisory. And Reader's Advisory is this concept in libraries of like how to help people find the next book that they want to read. It's, I think, how people think librarians, like, it's like what library school is. It's actually just one class. The other classes are about like cataloging and stuff like that. But in this class, it was about how to help people find the next book they wanted to read. And my teacher, it was really important to her that were familiar with all of the popular fiction genres. So it's whether or not you like reading mystery, you need to understand why people like reading mystery, right? You need to know the basics. And so every week we talked about a different genre, and we just got to pick like any book we wanted to read in that genre. And so when it got to the romance week, it was a time a few years ago where the Romance Writers of America was like imploding. There was like a whole big mess there. And Courtney Milan, who is a historical romance writer, was one of the people really like challenging the status quo at that organization. And so I wanted to read something by her. And so I read The Suffragette Scandal. And I just loved it so fiercely. And this was all happening at the time. This was like early spring of 2020. So it was right as COVID was starting to shut everything down. Mm-hmm. It was right as we were starting to move into the 2020 election time, which some of us may recall. And so it was a really scary time in a lot of ways. And I just loved this book, and I loved the way it made me feel. And so I was like, I want to read more. And so I just started reading like every romance I could possibly find. And it was really a survival tactic. Like I would wash the dishes with my phone propped on a cup with an ebook on it, like dry my hands to swipe a page to read this. And somewhere in there, after doing that for several months, I was like, maybe I want to try writing this. It was actually really exciting for me because I've always been a huge reader and I've always written things. And so people have asked before, like, why don't you write a novel? And I think that because all of my reading before romance was literary fiction, I never saw like a place for myself in writing because I didn't want to. I love reading literary fiction, but I don't think I have that in me. Like, I don't really have like that level of angst as a person. But when I started reading romance, I was like, wait, this is something I think I could do. I feel like this speaks to my personality. This speaks to my vibe. Also, there's something about romance where when we know there's a certain formula and we know where we're going to end, it's this really fun challenge to figure out what you're going to put in the middle, right? And it felt, for me, as someone who hadn't written fiction before, as this great opportunity. I was like, oh, okay, I can just play within this space, right? I don't have to try to invent the wheel. I'm given these kind of guideposts along the way, and I can figure out what happens in between them. I just started, it was in 2020. I'm like one of a million people who started writing a book during the pandemic. And the very first thought when I was like, I'm going to do this was like, it's going to be about birding. And it's funny because a lot of people are like, why did you decide to write a book about birding? I'm like, it was just always there. Like that the book would be about bird watching was just never separated from the fact that I wanted to write a romance novel. And so I just started writing, and I wrote about probably 40,000 words, which is like half the length of a novel, and was like, okay, like, you're figuring this out. Good job. Good try. Let's put that away. Let's start again. And then I actually wrote a whole different manuscript. And while that manuscript was on submission, I came back to the birding book, which became Birding with Benefits, which became my debut that came out in June of 2024. Yeah. It all started with that Courtney Milan book, The Suffragette Scandal, which is so great. If anyone else hasn't read it, she's a master. That's a great book.
Oh, that is so cool. My experience with birding, let's just jump right into it because
Oh, I'm always here to talk about birding.
I am not like someone who's like super into birding, but there was a time, I don't know, it had to have been really around the pandemic time frame where my kids were really into the movie The Big Year.
Oh, wow. What an interesting movie for your kids to be into.
They were
I love your kids. Okay, that is fantastic. I love
we,
that.
of course, had to skip any kissing scenes or anything like that because they were just like, especially my now 11-year-old. Anytime he's like, "Dad, they're about to kiss. Can you skip it?"
Like, no.
He's like, "Muted, turn it off." Like he just
Sounds great.
hates romance.
Yeah,
and it's just hilarious that they were so into it. And so we ended up getting them binoculars, and we got them your little birding guide and journal where you could write down the birds that you see. And then we became the people who, like, we have multiple bird feeders in our backyard and multiple bird baths. And, like, we just set up a little squirrel one because now we've got, like, little squirrels that are, like, juvenile. I don't think they're babies, but I'm pretty sure they're a lot younger. And juveniles, and so they're trying to get into the bird scene. So we got a little setup, little picnic table for them now. And so we're that family that, like, we watch from our window. It's a blast. If we could have, like, we had a crow come by a couple weeks ago, and we were like, nobody go near the window. Watch from afar. We want the crow to be our friend. Like, want a friend.
Find a present. Do we have a present to leave for the crow? Yeah.
What shiny things do we have? Let's go.
Oh my God, that's fantastic.
That is us. So when I saw your book in Barnes and Noble, and I'm gonna hold it up for people who are watching the video.
What a beauty.
First of all, it's fantastic. But the title Birding with Benefits, like, caught my attention right away. I was like, oh, yes, I love it. Let's do this. But then, like, just seeing her with the binoculars, like, one eyeball on him, one eyeball on a bird.
Right. I love it.
And then when I got into the story, you've got that initial part of kind of the fake dating, but it's one-sided because she's the one thinking they're fake dating. And he's like, I just need a birding partner. What the heck did my friend tell you? And she's like, trying to come up with ideas. She's like, so how comfortable are you with physical touch? I know we're trying to make this girl jealous. What's going on?
Right.
And he's just like,
but what is going on? The chaos of the opening of this book. And the truth is, because this book is characters in their 40s, and it is fake dating is a really hard trope to set up anyway. And when people are, like, older and mature and know better, it's even harder, right? You're like, how do I get these people to be, like, embroiled in this ridiculous mess? And it just has to snowball until they have no choice. But
yes, it's so good. And I mean, I need a book that's going to grab me right out the gate. And this one definitely delivered. Now, you already gave us a hint, but I wanted to get into the fact that your characters are in their 40s. You've got your female main character, names are Celeste, is, like, going through very perimenopause feelings, right? Yeah. Like, her life is lifing. She's a single mom, divorced. She's got an older daughter that's, like, about to go to college, so she's feeling a lot of feelings around that. And so tell me a little bit about why you decided to go the route of having the older main characters that I think don't typically see, especially in books published around this time.
Yeah. So it's funny because just like birding was always part of it, characters in their 40s were always part of it. And I think that it just never occurred to me not to, because I was 39 when I started writing the book. And first of all, I'm not sure I have access to like how 20-year-olds, even like 25-year-olds even think or speak, right? But to me, it was just obvious. It never occurred to me to not have them be that age. And it could actually have been good for me that at that point I was like completely saturated in historical romance. And I didn't actually read very much contemporary romance yet. And so maybe I didn't know like that there aren't as many stories about people in their 40s. So there was never this moment where I was like, oh, no, I shouldn't do this. I think it was very personal for me because, like I said, I was 39. My oldest kid was like just becoming a teenager. And I was really like looking ahead to this next stage of my life that I think women are really taught to dread. Right. Mm-hmm. The way that like turning 40 like looms in this ridiculous way. And so I really wrote very explicitly for myself, wrote Celeste as a character to be a guide for me, like looking ahead, like what is it going to look like in my 40s? What is it going to look like when my kid who is just now starting teenagerdom is going to be getting ready to leave the house? Because you're told to fear your 40s and you're told to fear like teenagers.
Yeah.
I think like everybody in the world is like, wait till your kids are teenagers. And like teenagers are actually great, by the way. Like for anyone who's afraid of that phase, they're fantastic. But I was like, oh my God, like my whole life is going to change when my kids are teenagers. And I kind of made Celeste to be this little guide for me, like a little bit of a mentor for me as I looked ahead to that time. And you know, what's funny is that because writing takes a really long time and publishing takes a really long time, by the time the book actually came out, I was older than Celeste is in the book. And now my oldest kid is going to college next year. And so I got there with her help. And I think I was also at a time in my life where I have been lucky that my relationship has stayed really great. I just had my 20th wedding anniversary last week.
Congrats.
But I was seeing a lot of friends in relationships and marriages that were ending, and seeing a lot of friends who were, I felt like, really being liberated by the end of those relationships. And I think the 40s can be like a second 20s, right? Another time. So I think a lot of us are finding new careers in our 40s or going back to school, starting new relationships. Just like I really wanted to embody this idea that you really can't have, it's called midlife for a reason, right? Because we're only like halfway through. It's not a death sentence.
Right.
So to me, it's just an extremely fruitful time of life. And so I was just excited to show that a little bit.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that representation is so needed in romances. I know personally, I'm in my mid-30s and I am so done hearing about like 18-year-olds or 20-year-olds. And I'm like, you guys are babies. Like, cool. I think about myself at that age, like the decisions that I was making and like,
yeah,
what were you doing?
And I have to, when I read romance with younger characters, I just naturally age them up in my mind. I think for my own comfort level. And I don't know if you're like a fan of the Game Changer series, the Rachel Reed books, but they're like hockey books, and I've read them all 1,000 times. And they're making a TV series about the heated rivalry, like the most popular book in her series. And so I've watched the trailer, and I was like, oh God, those guys are so young. In my brain, I have made them 30. They are, in fact, like pushing 20, maybe, right? I'm like,
oh, no. And I think that you have to kind of write what you know, too. I know we had Alexandria House on in season 1, and I was talking to her about, like, writing more mature characters, and, like, her next series that she is working on is going to be an MC, like a motorcycle club, for the uninitiated romance, where the characters are like 50s, 60s. And I was like, yes, like I love to see it.
Yeah, it's so great because there's just still so much life to be had. I'm actually working right now. I wish I could say the release date, but I don't know, but I will share it like with some other authors on an anthology of short stories, romance short stories that's all 40 plus. So really digging into that, the power of the 40s and the 50s and beyond.
Yes, I have so for people who don't know, I have a podcast production agency. That's what I do for work. And two of our clients talk to people, women in that midlife stage. And I've learned so much about like things I need to be doing now. And as I gear up for that, and even thinking about my own mom who passed in 2019, but like she was 45. And so thinking about what her life was like and the things
Right.
that she was going through. And I'm pretty sure she was going through severe perimenopause symptoms, but nobody was talking
Nobody.
about it.
It's like such
And
a weird mystery until you're
yeah.
thick in it. Yeah.
And so, like, just thinking about all the things that she was medically like, the doctors don't know what's wrong with me, and I don't know what's wrong with me, and I just am
Right.
struggling so much, like, physically in so much pain.
So real. Yeah.
And it's, so, okay, now I know what to gear up for. Now I know what to, like, plan for.
Right.
And
Right.
I'm pretty
Right.
sure that's what she was going through. So I'm so happy that we're, like, having these conversations and we have these support. So for anyone who's like, I need podcasts for, who are at that age, who want podcasts for that, I highly recommend Pleasure in the Pause, which is all about finding pleasure in perimenopause and menopause.
All right.
Yes,
Okay.
with Gabriela Espinosa. So that's one of my clients. And that one is really good and is continued. The one that is another one that's good has like people doing a lot of things at that age in life. The podcast is changing names. It used to be called The Jen Marple Show. You should be able to still find it that way. And then the new title will be You're Not Too Fucking Old is the new title. So,
it.
yeah. Check out those two for people who are at that stage in life and they want to hear either inspiring stories or how to find more pleasure, whatever kind of pleasure. And she goes the gambit. Like, yes, very good. Okay. So you also, your book was recently released as a Hallmark film, which is so cool. I have a friend,
Girl, ever.
she is like a diehard Hallmark fan. It's like her kind of head in the sand, the world is on fire, and I need just love and happiness and joy. So I'm going to watch Hallmark.
Yes.
I love that. Tell us a bit about what that process was like for you, just as someone who was like, I just put this book out into the world.
Yeah, it's been really amazing. Hallmark optioned the rights to the book actually before the book came out.
Mm.
They optioned the rights in 2023, I think. And so I knew it was a possibility. So optioning means they held on to the right to buy the rights. No one else could buy the rights as long as they had the option. And I think that what they do is they start a process and then they actually buy the rights when they are like, they bought the rights officially for me 10 days before they started filming. So
Wow.
they were putting everything together on their end, and I didn't know that was happening. Folks had asked if I had anything to do with the production or the screenplay or anything, and I didn't have anything to do with it at all. I literally learned that they bought the rights because they paid me, and then I saw an article that filming was about to start. So it was honestly the best possible outcome because, like, very rarely do authors, first of all, ever get to see their work adapted this way. But second of all, if they do, it is like the longest, most grueling process, right? Your option, it doesn't work. Your option, there's hope, it doesn't work. They're filming, it's years later. I love instant gratification. And this was like the most instantly gratifying experience because I found out they were doing it. They started filming 10 days later, and the movie came out 3 months after that. Like,
Wow.
it was great. So that aspect of it has just been like really fun, really exciting. We were saying before a little bit, I don't necessarily watch TV or movies. It's something weird. I think that happened to my brain during COVID where everybody else started binging Netflix and I started to find visual media like really overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I was like pretty unfamiliar with Hallmark movies. And so in order to get ready to watch this Hallmark movie, I was like, I gotta be familiar with Hallmark movies. So I started just watching like Hallmark movie after Hallmark movie. And I have to say, from the very get-go, I was so like impressed and pleased. I think they do really good work. Their scripts are really funny. They're very funny. They're very true to life. They're just like so heartwarming. I don't know how many I watched. I have an Instagram like highlight reel of my like mini reviews of all the Hallmark movies I've watched. So there's a ton in there. So I did all that to get myself ready. And meanwhile, Hallmark fans were like, Hallmark fan accounts, especially, were like taking me under their wing And like they knew information that I don't know how they got it, but right, like they knew the cast before it was announced. And so I could follow those actors and see these little snippets. Like Rachel Boston, who played Celeste, would post these pictures on her stories of cameras set up in this stream in this forest. And I'd be like, oh my God, like
That's my book.
just so unreal to think about. Because for me, one of the funnest things about doing this is just the ways I get to connect with people, like the ways I just hear from someone who saw my book at a library and read it and had a response to it. And so to know that like kind of web of people was just like bigger and bigger, of these people coming together because of this idea that had started in my head years ago. It was just so fun. And then when the movie came out, I was nervous. I was very nervous. But I practiced a lot of detachment before. Like, okay, this is a totally separate thing. And I talked to authors a lot about how we can like practice detachment between like our personal worth and how people respond to our books, how we feel about our books and how other people do, right? I really believe once I had to freeze Birding with Benefits and time and put it into the world, like it belongs to the people who read it and they can think anything they want about it and they can interpret it in any way. And so in the movie, I was very prepared to be like, okay, this is a new thing. It's a new interpretation. I'm just here for the joy of it. And I set pretty firm boundaries with people where I was like, I don't want to hear. If you don't like the movie, I don't want to hear about it. If you don't like the casting, I don't want to hear about it. I'm preserving my joy in this little box. And then I watched the movie and I loved it so much. Like I freaking love this movie. And I'm not just saying that. Like I actually do truly love it with all my heart. There is actually a lot more similar to the book than I expected. There are a lot more themes that mirror the book than I expected. I was like, oh my God, Andrea, like her coworker is still named Andrea and still has a cousin who's a dentist that she's trying to set Celeste up with. These really specific details, specific lines from the book that are in the script, but also just like the heart, right? Like for me, the heart of this book, it's about curiosity and discovery, and both in opening yourself up to that in relationships and then like in the wider world and in all through this journey of learning about bird watching. And that's like totally intact in the movie. Yeah, I love it. I love it so much. It's been a wild ride. I don't have a bingo card because I don't want to set myself up for things and not get them and then be sad, but that means that like everything that happens is just this like new, incredible surprise. So it's been really fun.
Oh, that is so cool. Yeah, I can't imagine like one, just having to put your work out into the world and then being like, all right, it's for the people. And then having someone take it and then remake it, reshape it in a way, and then not have anything to do with that. I'd be like, no, I want my fingers all up in it.
Yeah. The first time I was so nervous. The first time I watched it, I did get a screener, so I was able to watch it before it released. And because people were like, hey, can we have a watch party? Are you going to plan something? I was like, I don't know. There's no way. I'm watching this for the first time in a room full of people. Not a chance. Because no one's watching the movie. They're all going to be like watching me. So the first time I watched it, I got a cup of tea. I like, went in my room. I got my daughter's weighted blanket and just watched it completely by myself. But yeah, that was how that first watching definitely had to be. But then I did have a watch party a couple weeks after it came out with tons of local friends, and it was really fun.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh, man. Yeah, I can't imagine. I do love that the whole premise of it. And I love this idea of, like you mentioned before, women coming out of marriages that just do not serve them in any way, shape, or form, where they are giving so much of themselves to their partner, to their children, to their career, where they lose who they are or who they were before all of that. And so seeing Celeste go through this journey and meet a hot dude along the way is just wonderful, right?
It doesn't hurt.
And also, for people who haven't read it, he does woodworking, so he's good with his hands. You know what I mean?
And he's patient and he pays attention because he's a bird watcher.
Yes, come on. Anyway, so I love that she is trying different things and exploring different things and just trying to figure out what is something that I can enjoy that's just for me. And I think that as women, as moms, we need more of that in our lives. And I know that this book definitely encouraged me to be like, what are my interests and my communities outside of being a business owner, being a wife, being a mom? being around my family 24/7 because my husband homeschools our kids. Like, I do not leave them at
Yeah,
any point.
never.
I find space where I can just be me, whether that's virtually or in person, right? And intentionally making time for that. So I love that you had that as like the basis of it. And it was such a good reminder for me as a mom.
Thank you. And there is some kind of moment in the book, and I can't remember exactly where it is, but I think Celeste thinks to herself, like, is this selfish, these decisions I'm making? And then she's like, yeah, if I can't be selfish now, when? When do I ever get to choose something for myself? I have been choosing other people and caring for other people forever. And we can do both, right? We can care for ourselves and care for other people. And something that I really try to convey through her is that when we see her, like, yeah, she's in this journey of self-discovery where she is centering herself finally for the first time. She's also constantly caring for her daughter. She's also taking on this caregiving role for her friend who is a new mom. And at the end of the book, something that was really important to me is for Celeste to like really be challenged to turn that friendship onto herself, which is something that I think is so fascinating about women is that we are amazing friends, right? We are amazing friends. We are amazing caretakers, and we are so shitty at doing that for ourselves.
Yeah.
We just cannot turn it on ourselves. And so she gets these messages at the end of the book, both from her daughter and from her best friend, to be like, some of this stuff you give us, like, just turn it back. You deserve that too.
Yeah.
Because I just think it's not that we don't know how to take care of people, so we don't know how to take care of ourselves.
It's like, who takes care of you? I don't know.
And then the best thing is you're like, you're right. That's another thing I'm doing badly.
Another thing for the list.
Yeah, the point is not to now blame yourself for not taking care of yourself.
So you have a new book coming out in February. So for people who are watching this in the future, listening to this in the future, hello, future people.
Hello. I hope
February
things are looking a little better.
All right, fingers crossed. February 2026, you have Honey Be Mine, which I love this title too.
It's the best, isn't it?
Tell us a bit about this book and what we can expect from it.
So Honey Be Mine. Oh my gosh. I was telling my husband last night, I haven't started talking about this book very much. And so I'm like learning myself how to talk about it. It is a small town romance between a type A beekeeper and a single dad who is the former like bad boy of the town. And so Xander used to be shipped to his grandfather's house in this small town in New York every summer because nobody like really wanted him. And so he spent every summer there and hated this place. Meanwhile, Penny, who is our beekeeper, is like a third generation beekeeper running her family's apple orchard. And she's the kind of woman who just holds everything on her shoulders all the time. And through machinations, they end up working together to plan the town's honey festival. And it's funny because it sounds just like a Hallmark movie. I know. And what I love about this book, though, is that it's really so much about family relationships and histories. And like Xander is in town with his co-parent, who's his ex-wife, because they have stayed really close. She's from this town. They ran away together when they were 19. And then even once they split up, they stayed as co-parents. And then eventually she fell in love with his best friend, a woman named Quinn. And so they're all there together. And so I really like exploring these different ideas of what family is and what families can look like. And I really wanted to make someone who was like a single parent, but who had a good relationship with their co-parent. And in Birdie with Benefits, I'm exploring that, like about to be an empty nester. In this book, the kid is 11. And I think you mentioned having an 11-year-old. It is I think it's the hardest age. I think it's way harder than the teenage years. I think it's a time when that tweendom, when kids are like those puberty hormones are starting to build up in them and there's nowhere for them to go. Yeah. And kids are also developing this larger awareness of the world, of like mortality and just like the world at large. It's a really challenging time for kids and for their parents. And so I wanted to like turn to that stage of parenting as well. Yeah, so it's a really lovely book. It's set in upstate New York. There's lots of flowers and bees and honey. The characters are in their mid-30s. And a lot of my therapy went into this book. It's dedicated to my therapist because I just feel like it holds a lot of the learning that I have done around like healing from our past and
Mhm.
finding ways to raise our kids and be in relationships that look different than maybe what we saw growing up.
Yeah, it's so important. I am constantly telling my kids, this is the first time I've ever been a parent,
Yeah.
right? This is all new to me. We're doing this together, and I'm sorry it's new for you too.
Yeah. And we're doing it together and you just have to keep trying and you just have to keep showing up. And I think that's a lot of what this book is about. It's just like about showing up and how do we show up for each other. I've joked that in Birding with Benefits, there's obviously like the mother-daughter relationship, but other than that, like there's no family in the book. Like Celeste's upbringing is a mystery. We hear a little bit about John's family, whereas Honeybee Mine is all about family. It's all about Penny's generations. It's all about Xander's family and his generations, and just like all of us making peace with all of that.
Oh, that's so cool. And you said upstate New York. I'm originally from upstate New York. That's where I was born and raised. I now live in North Carolina, but yeah, Syracuse, go Orangemen.
Yeah, right up in that area. It's because my family has vacationed a couple of years with my in-laws in the Finger Lakes area. And
Yep.
so when I was up there, I was like, oh, because, place is really important for me. And my book with Birding with Benefits, like the setting kind of is another character in the book. And it's set in Tucson where I live and where I grew up. And so I knew that any other book has to have a really like, I need to know that place, I think. And so I spent a lot of time on our trips there. I was on one trip there as I was starting the book, and then I was on another trip there as I was doing my final edits on the book. And so that was
Nice.
really nice to be in that place while I was working on that manuscript.
Oh, so cool. Yeah, we used to go up to Beacon Skiff to go apple picking every year. So for people that are like, oh my God, yes.
Yeah, so yeah, she run with the apple orchard. They're all over the place.
Yes.
People love their apples up there.
Yep.
This last summer when I was there, I bought so much honey. Like it was ridiculous because I was like, I'm writing a book about a beekeeper in this area. And I just had so much honey. And I made the mistake of putting one of them in my carry-on and I forgot. So then at the airport, she's like, this a bear's worth of honey I had to give up.
Oh no.
I'll forever mourn it.
I bet. Yeah. Oh man. I'm so excited to read it. I'm so excited for people to check it out when it comes out. You also have, before we let you go, you have an additional author name.
Another identity.
Yes.
She's not as active anymore, but I also have some books published under the name Eliza McClain. Those books are very important to me in terms of my writing life because I actually wrote. So when you're trying to pursue traditional publishing, your agent sends your work out to like the publisher. That's called being on submission. And I was on submission with one manuscript for a year. And then I was on submission with Birding with Benefits for 14 months. And it's just so much waiting. That's worse. And sometime in there, I just really started to feel down about writing in general. It's a different kind of feeling to write something just for fun than to write it hoping it's going to sell. And you start to think, what do editors want? What about this? What about this? And I was just losing my spark in terms of writing. And then my agent has a bunch of clients and all of us are in communication with each other. And we have a holiday Zoom party every year. And one year we all wrote really unhinged holiday book story pitches and then put them on a slideshow. And our agent had to guess who had written what pitch.
That's so
and
cool.
A year after I wrote that pitch, I was like still thinking about this story, which was about an actor who shows up at a private party. It's a Christmas story. Thinking he's playing Santa Claus at the party, and he finds out that it's an adult film and that his co-star and director is his best friend's sister. And I love this plot. And I actually got more and more excited to write it because I thought it was like such a good way to explore like sex positivity and positivity around sex work. And I love the brother's best friend trope. Yes. And they get snowed in. It just had all the things that made me just feel excited to write again. And so I was like, I'm just going to write this for myself. I'm just going to let myself have a lot of fun. And I'm going to learn through this book, like how to self-publish something so that if I decide to go down that road, I can. And so I just wrote it like forgetting everything else, which I think once you're in like the publishing machine, it's really hard but important to keep going back to that. Like, why am I doing this? Is this fun? Am I having fun? How do I have fun? So I just had a lot of fun writing that novella. It's a short novel called Santa Baby. And it was so much fun that then I wrote another one. And I wrote a Valentine's Day book called Perfect Match, which is actually my favorite thing I think I've ever written. And then I wrote a Halloween book called Haunted Hookup. And Perfect Match came out as I got my book deal, right when I got a call about a book deal. And so then I still went on and did one more. And I haven't had time to do more since then, but it was just like a very joyful, low stakes, a place where I'm like, no one is going to tell me the story needs to be different. Anytime I question what should happen now, it's just going to be like, whatever I want to happen now. I remember when I was writing Perfect Match, like I thought there should be some kind of bigger third act breakup, even though the book was short. And then I was like, no, she's just going to come right back to that door. Like, she's not going to actually leave this hotel. She's just going to knock 2 seconds later because that's what I want. Like, I hate conflict. So, yeah, those are really fun. And they're just still out there, like, doing their work and finding people. And I will always love them as my precious little babies.
It's so awesome. Yeah, I was telling you before that when I picked up Birding with Benefits and I fell in love with it, and then I went to go check out your Instagram, I saw that you had that other account, and I was like, I know that name. Why do I know that name? And I was like, oh my God, I have those books. I need to read them.
It is like really fun when occasionally people are like, wait, you're both? I'm like, yeah, I both. And you can tell, you know, that the novellas have a different, they're a little spice. They're not spicier in content, but like for how long they are, there is more spice in them than in my longer books. But I think you still see a lot of my same stuff in there, like writing about like consent and communication are in any interaction, but especially in sex are like really important to me. And yeah, I try to have that be a big part of those books and anything I write.
Yes, it's so good. All right, so for people who are like, hell yes, I need all of these things, where can they find you, get to know you, buy your upcoming book?
Yeah, so Instagram is definitely the social media place where I'm most active. I can't really, every once in a while, I'm having like a TikTok moment where I'm like on TikTok all the time, but I guarantee a week from now, I'll be like, I don't even know that app. But Instagram, I kind of stay on. Sarah T. Dubb writes. I have a website, sarahTdubb.com, that has all my book stuff. The 3 novellas are all on Kindle Unlimited. And then my other book, Birdie with Benefits, is out now. Anywhere, I encourage you to use your library or bookshop.org to support your local indie. And Honeybee Mine will be out in February.
And we'll have links for all of that in the show notes for anyone doing other things or cooking dinner as they're listening to us talk. We've got you for those. Thank you so much, Sarah, for being on. This has been so much fun.
Yeah, this is so fun. Thank you so much. This is awesome.